This is the July general meeting of the St. John's Neighborhood Association. We'll call it to order at 7:05 p.m. My name is RJ DeMel. I'm the chair of SJNA. We have a group here in person at the St. John's Community Center, and as well as everybody here on Zoom. Thank you for joining us. If you're on Zoom, we do have live translated captions available. So if you or anybody you know, their preferred language is something other than English, they can easily turn that on at the bottom of your Zoom. And so please let anybody know who that would be helpful for them in being able to attend these meetings. Here at SJNA, the way to be a member is you're here and you live in St. John's or Cathedral Park, or you work, own property, work in a nonprofit that does a significant amount of business in the neighborhood, and there's no sort of previous meeting requirement to vote. So if you meet any of those criteria and this is your first meeting, that's okay. You can vote on anything that comes up this evening. And we're gonna, so what we'll do, we'll start with all the most fun things of these types of meetings, which is approving past last month's minutes. And then we'll move through our agenda, which includes an update on the BottleDrop in that location on Lombard. A representative from the EPA is here to speak briefly. We'll have updates from other local community organizations. And then we've left a lot of time for neighbors to bring up any questions, comments, concerns, and also motions. So that's something that we've talked about as a board and wanted to make clearer when we come to these meetings is any member can make a motion on an item. So it is not like only the board can bring like, oh, let's support this or be against that. Any member can bring a motion to propose that and then bring debate to the floor to discuss the issue and then have the members vote on it. So this is a very open organization and process where the board is not like gatekeeping any sort of issues or things at all. So want to make sure everybody feels empowered to, bring something forward if you really care about it and think we should, as a neighborhood association, take a stance on it. And we can take the time to talk about it and talk through it, and then decide to hold a vote on it if we wish. So with that, we're going to go ahead and start the meeting minute process. Now, we've sent these out, the June meeting minutes, we sent these out in the newsletter, we sent it out in the meeting reminder on email. So if you get our emails, you'll hopefully have seen these minutes before. I'm dropping them in the chat for those on Zoom, and I will share my screen for those in the room. We'll do the Star Wars scroll through briefly just to see if there is anything that requires updating, and then we can go from there. How are we doing? How does that, can we, hopefully that's good. So, yes.
Says board members present.
Yes.
The capitalized words and check this.
Sure. We checked it, right?
Were we trying to check if Brian was there or not? Maybe.
Paul?
Yes.
Were we checking to see if Brian was there, or I don't know, there was a note in the notes.
He was,
Probably wanted to check everything. I don't know.
Okay.
Checking is always good. I don't know.
Just move on.
yeah. So for anybody who wasn't there or who was, but a quick recap, we did have Annie Lewis, who's the interim director of libraries from Multnomah County Library. She came to the meeting to speak on their plans for when the library closes for innovation. Basically, it's going to be closed for 18 months while they renovate the space. At the meeting, she had said it would close late summer. In an email today, she said early fall. So it's a moving target. We'll see when exactly the construction starts. So they're focusing on intentional outreach into the community. There was a number of questions. Basically, there's going to be a new batch of books that goes in the library when it is reopened. Their main obstacle to opening a temporary library is staffing. When they talk about a temporary library, they mean something that's going to be operating on regular hours and take the place of it. What was talked about at this meeting was about having some kind of maybe consistent pop-up library situation where every Saturday they're going to have something set up to where it's frequent and it's known and it's easy to sort of do education about that being a resource in there. So that's something we'll continue to discuss with them and be in the know about. And actually, we've had Brooklyn Sherman join the board as a liaison to help keep the communication open with Multnomah County Library and continue advocacy for the neighborhood. We've also had a couple of general members raise their hand as being interested in potentially joining a committee to be sort of the advocacy group that represents SJNA and St. John's in this moving forward. So we'll be paying close attention to this and focused on it. And hopefully, essentially getting more than what they say they can do, because they can always do more than what they say they can. So we'll be working on that.
Okay.
Anything in the chat there?
Yeah, it looks like Paul was,
I got it.
okay, thanks, Paul.
Okay.
Yeah, someone just appeared twice.
For those who have attended any meetings recently, you know Donna, and you know that the bridges over the cut will all fail when the big one hits. They're also all in danger of weight restriction, which Fessenden already has a weight restriction on it. So there'll be continued work towards trying to get them to address that issue. Friends of the Trees joined their St. John's is a neighborhood where they are doing free trees and free planting this fall. So encourage everybody to sign up on their website, get more details. And then in a month or so, the portal will open to sort of select trees and be able to say that you want a fig tree in your yard, and then they can come in and plant it free of charge to help improve our canopy here in St. John's. And the other main, is there a question on Zoom?
Then maybe
No.
feedback.
No, wanted to know if she could get AI access. AI can.
Can you,
Sorry, who asked?
Janelle
Janelle.
LD? The other main item from last meeting, we presented, the board presented a proposed fiscal year 24-25 budget. We operate on a July 1st to June 30th fiscal year. We presented the budget. It was approved unanimously. There are copies in person. There are copies here if you want to take a look. And additionally, that was linked in the emails that were sent out. So we are going to be moving forward throughout the year with that. We will investigate some of the questions that came up about using a credit union. We'll investigate that. And if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out on that front. And some other events like the Cathedral Park Dock. I had the opening event on the 29th. And some small updates, and that was the meeting. Any changes or updates needed that have not been called out already? Anything on Zoom there?
I wasn't seeing any except.
Okay.
Yeah, that's small stuff. I had to figure out what AI companion is, but I turned it on.
Great. Great. So then do I have a motion to approve the June general meeting minutes?
I still move.
I second.
All Jesse seconds that. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go to look to pass this with unanimous consent. So please raise your hand if you are opposed to the approval of these minutes. If there is an opposed person out there, we'll go to a count of the vote, but otherwise they'll be approved unanimously. No hands in the room. No hands on Zoom. All right, those are approved. Thanks for bearing with us. And we can move on. So I wanted to provide an update quickly. What was it last week? It was, what day is it today? It's the 8th, June 28th. There was a meeting that board member Kim Larson and I attended that were representatives from OBRC, the cooperative that manages the bottle bill and the redemption centers, and thus is the one looking to put a redemption center on Lombard. It had our elected officials, Representative Travis Nelson, Representative Maxine Dexter, their staff, Carmen Rubio's chief of staff. Then ourselves and also Mike Vile, if you are familiar with Mike, who has been at meetings before. Essentially, and the conversation had a couple of main points. The first being Carmen Rubio's team has done a really great job offering OBRC a lot of alternative sites to consider. I believe the number was even as high as 24 potential alternatives for to the Lombard site to say maybe one of these will be better suited. The conclusion was OBRC deems none of them good enough, essentially. They don't check every box, basically, and it seems like they're looking for every box to be checked. So what they were curious about was if there was a way to make the Lombard location work. They were hoping to set out some kind of grounds to put together a good neighbor agreement with very specific clauses and maybe some actual way to have it be enforced. So that was their ask and intention of coming to that meeting. It seems the response was no, that there is no way to make that location work. We listed out all of the reasons that we've talked about, the reasons that were in our letter of opposition, that aren't just public safety concerns. There's a lot of those. And then there's also all the other about traffic on that road, large semi trucks coming down as kids are trying to get to school. The use of that area basically being a giant parking lot when we need more housing in this city and in this neighborhood. So all those things are brought up. I think it was made clear to OBRC that there is not a path forward with the Lombard location, at least one where they can get any sort of semblance of support or cooperation from the community. So the immediate action item was that they were going to continue to look for an alternative locations. Carmen Rubio's team was going to continue to look for other sites that are for sale and listed that might fit for it. If you know any sites that get in touch, because that's they seem to be running out of places to have OBRC consider. So there's three paths forward as I see it. One is either a new alternate location checks enough boxes, they go with it, or there can be enough input and pressure to where they decide that if one of these, even though one of these alternate locations doesn't check every box, it checks enough, and they decide to go with that as opposed to Lombard. They could decide to start, putting the pressure on to say, we want to just move forward with Lombard, see if the city will move it forward and out of BDS and onto LCC for approval. That's when there would be a 30-day public comment period. I would be very surprised if that did move forward. That would be a pretty big reversal from the elected officials who've been pretty adamantly opposed to this location. So there is a third option, and it's one that hasn't really been talked about, I feel like, in general. And it's one that I clarified at the meeting, and I thought it was important to bring up here. And that is, they don't actually need to have a redemption center. That is not a requirement. So far it feels like it's been positioned as if it is like, well, there needs to be one somewhere, so we got to figure it out, and there actually doesn't need to be. So yeah, door number 3 is no new redemption center is put in North Portland, and then the retail establishments would be required to accept individual bottles and cans again. So Fred Meyer, Safeway, those locations would have to start accepting 120 bottles and cans per individual per day again. So as opposed to concentrating at the redemption center, it would be back on the retailers to manage the bottle bill and take care of that moving forward. So yeah, that is something that we as a neighborhood could push for, lobby for, say that, this is an alternative. I just, thought it was a little bit of a dishonest conversation before that, because it seemed as if it was just there has to be a redemption center. So it's either on Lombard or you find somewhere else, but those aren't the only choices in this discussion. But yes, you have a question?
I had a question about so you talk about, instead of money, credits for food. I mean, there's no cash, it's credit for food at these places where the laws are developed out, where cash is eliminated from the whole transaction. The other thing, new place they're building, new sites, they're covering up with.
Oh, the temporary alternative shelter site, yeah.
I mean, would there be anything about having a site that's near to that way there, because who's collecting bottles and who's needing to turn them into some kind of useful cash? It would be helpful to have a redemption site on the way there or in that direction.
Right.
I understand what's the area, but.
Right, sure. Yeah, so, and for those on Zoom, yeah, there's 2 questions or points here. The first was about any discussion around essentially getting rid of the immediate sort of cash incentive of the individual returns. That wasn't part of the conversation that we were having. That was purely a conversation about a location, though that is, I know, a conversation that is happening in various other circles and at other levels. And so it could be something, I think if that's something people are interested in, there's ways to advocate for that. Right now, the neighborhood association is focusing on that location and not necessarily the other sort of policies that they move forward with there. Yeah.
Where it's symbiotic with what's happening around it.
Yeah. So the other one was about having a location that is, more convenient and located for those that are more likely to utilize the redemption center services. That's actually a point that Kim brought up and that we saw in the survey data, as trying to have this be a convenient redemption center for those that would and could use it. And so that was a discussion that was had around one of the particular sites that they showed us. So they showed us about 5 of the sites that the Carmen Rubio's team had presented. And it was meant to be like, here's why these won't work. But there was one site that I think everybody in the room kind of was like, this seems like it would actually work. And it was on Columbia Boulevard across from the Mondelez plant there. And there's a space that would actually serve more retailers than this Lombard location would, which earlier in the meeting they said was kind of their main priority in terms of a location, was finding one that would serve the most retailers. But then when we brought up that this one served more retailers, it suddenly didn't work in other areas. Their main thing was that it's zoned industrial, and they don't think it is something zoned industrial, that it has the right sort of setup to be safe for customers coming in to redeem individual bottles and cans. But that, yeah, Kim, was there anything else you would add to that, and I can repeat it to Zoom? Or yeah, if you want to come up here that way, yeah, Zoom can hear, sure.
So I met with ORBC on Friday to go over the survey data. Devin, who I spoke to, had an impression that BottleDrop is universally liked, and that there was a niche resistance in St. John's opposed to universal resistance. So we clarified that. And we also talked about how the survey was not in response to BottleDrop, but was happening throughout the process, and BottleDrop just came up. So that kind of popped the illusion that it was a retaliatory survey versus a neutral survey. And so I'm going to continue following up with them to make sure that they have access to the data, because they do think that BottleDrop is a welcomed service to the community. And perhaps there is a place where it is going to be welcome. We need to figure out where that is together, was my perspective on Friday.
Thank you. Paul, yeah?
Let me just put in, what I'm gonna say, nobody's gonna agree with, but that's okay. The bottled fluid industry is something that's kept going by advertising. I mean, I've seen this happen in my lifetime. When I was a kid, getting a bottle of Coke in a returnable bottle, was a rare thing, and it was special. And now we've moved to this point where everybody has to be carrying around a water bottle in a city that has excellent drinking water. So, and do we really as a planet think that this is the time, this is any indication that the planet is broken now? Yes, there is, like the weather, for instance. Systems are broken, so should we really be melting down sand into glass or melting down bauxite into aluminum? Probably not. And I would rather that this institution, that this neighborhood association, take a stand, not just about the BottleDrop, and I agree the Lombard location is idiotic and destructive, fine. But not just against the BottleDrop, but against the whole idea that advertisers can advertise to young children when their minds are forming, and say, you guys need something that comes in a disposable one-use bottle. And I would much rather that we be fighting, it's not going to happen probably, but anyway, that we be fighting for stop having one-use bottles of anything. That solves the BottleDrop problem. Thank you.
There is a hand raised on Zoom. So Lisa, go ahead. We should be able to hear you through the speakers in the room.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just curious. I know you said you're feeling like it's highly unlikely that they will go forward with that location, but sometimes when things get too quiet, things still kind of move along. Is there anything that we need to still be doing to reiterate and keep the pressure up that this isn't something that the community at large wants?
So right now it's still at the BDS, with Bureau of Development Services, I believe, which is under Carmen Rubio's purview. I think they are very well know that it is a non-starter issue here, but it can't hurt to continue to write to that office to emphasize the opposition to the location. That at this stage is I would say the main piece of feedback in the event that's they decide to approve it and let it move forward, then it would move to a public comment period before OLCC would make a ruling. So then there would be a very large advocacy push there as well if it got to that stage. But for now, I would say it's Carmen Rubio's office to really ensure that they continue to advocate on our behalf, continue to look for those alternate locations and try to bring in other parties to find a solution. Like at this meeting, Carmen Rubio's team brought up, they really wanted to have OLCC in the room in the future to have those discussions with them and not, leave them out of that. So that would be mine. Yeah. Unless, was there any desire from OBRC to hear direct feedback? Probably not.
And whatever Reddit threads of discussing St. John's or BottleDrop,
Mm-hmm.
they are really looking for where they would be welcome.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not necessarily friendly at all these meetings, but discussing it openly online.
Mm-hmm.
in accessible places like
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And could someone pass along feedback to us that would be useful, like in incorporating in that, or?
Probably figure out really.
Okay. Okay.
Those public sources are good sources.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Whatever the place.
Can I just update the Zoom
Yeah.
and then, so Kim said the conversations are going to continue with OBRC, go over further survey data, and then also aggregate things like Google reviews and Reddit threads about redemption centers to help them collect even just more general data around bottle drops. And so leaving input on those public forums would be helpful. If you want to get in touch to the info at inbox as well, we could potentially pass along thoughts and feelings there. So yeah, info at St. John's PDX if you want to do that. But again, I would encourage direct outreach to Carmen Rubio's office as a direct action for this one. Is there anything in the chat we need to address, or?
I was just gonna speak to something, but did you have a?
Yeah.
So is there any way the city council can quietly behind the scenes just move it forward so like the city thing? Just decide, we're gonna make an agreement and we're gonna go. Can they do that?
So the question was, can like the city council quietly sort of move forward with this, like with Zenith Energy? Yes, honestly, yes. Like it's in BDS, right, in that department right now, which is overseen by Carmen Rubio. If they wanted to, they could approve it tomorrow. And then it would move to the public comment period where we'd have 30 days to provide testimony and all that stuff. So right now it's being held up because they're taking a stand knowing that that's what the neighborhood wants. So that's why I encourage the direct outreach to Carmen Rubio's office, because the more that they hear from us, the less likely there are to get any sort of inclination to say, well, let's slip through here. Yeah, and that was, I believe, a city council vote, whereas this is like something in a particular department of the city council. So it's like a bureaucratic decision rather than a city council like voting decision. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I just wanted to add was I was chatting with Chase here in the chat, but for option 3, just something, this is a little bit of a personal opinion, but just something to consider. So when you actually think of the numbers, and don't count me on this, and maybe one off or a couple off here, but the idea still stands. So Delta Park, from my understanding, was covering around 16 retail locations. So what that means is there is a radius from that OBRC drop-off area that those retailers get the exemption or the exception to receive and be able to reduce the amount they have to take in per day. So it goes down from, again, if there is no bottle drop, it's about 120 bottles per day per person at retail locations, where OBRC BottleDrop is around 250 per day. But I think for me personally, I remember before the Delta Park opened, that was how it was in North Portland, Interstate Lombard, et cetera, right? Like, all of these retailers were accepting that. So I do think that, in my personal opinion, the grocery lobby is pushing a lot for these redemption centers, because they have a lot of challenges, maybe that they're pushing some of the costs onto additional security guards or their own staff or whatnot. But I think that is something to keep in mind, is we're probably up against some larger lobbyists here, that the Krogers and the whomevers of the world, that are advocating to push this to a more centralized location, rather than going back to the way it was, again, less than 10 years ago, I think, was when that opened, where retail locations were accepting up to 120 per day. So,
And that, yeah, OBRC is a co-op, and their interest, yeah, like the people in the co-op are the retailers and are the distributors. And so they're meant to serve that system to make it work for the members of the co-op, not to make it work for the general public. So their incentive system is a little off there. Yeah. So, Jonah, I see a hand up there on Zoom. Go ahead.
Can you hear me just fine?
Yeah.
First of all, just thank you everybody for all your hard work in trying to mitigate this concern from the community. It's much appreciated. I was just curious, out of those 24 or so options, had they presented any feasibility studies, any test fits, any kind of statistical information to validate that those would not work? Or did they just say, no, those don't work? And I guess where I'm going with this is, was there any good faith effort put in by OBRC from your assessment to actually look at those locations, or are they just simply biding their time?
To your first question, they have no score, they have no ranking, they have nothing that they could provide that said, like, this is how we came to the decision. I think, like I mentioned, it was like, I tried to get out of them, like, what's the most important thing? Because there was a list of 5 or 6, like, this is what we evaluate. And I was like, okay, so what's more important than another that will like win out in the end? And it seemed as if it was number of retailers served. But then when we got to the one that served more retailers, then it was, oh, but this isn't, the right place for the customers. And then I tried to ask, so then, like, would you consider Delta Park a convenient place to get to for customers? Because it's kind of like, in my opinion, it's out in the middle of nowhere. It's not really easy to get to. And they couldn't answer the question, basically. There was no, like, this is what it means to be accessible, or safe for people to access. Or if they do have that, they were unwilling to provide it in that meeting. So it did feel, Jonah, as quite arbitrarily determined, of sort of a, there's something wrong with this one, it's not ideal, so no, and then this one doesn't serve enough retailers, and this one, like, there's not a concrete thing there. Unfortunately. What was your second question? My apologies.
Well, basically where I'm going with that is the way I read into that, and of course, this is just my own personal assessment, is that they're simply waiting for the election in November to see how that shakes out, or they're simply waiting for either the city or the county or somebody else to buy them out, because from their perspective, what's their incentive to essentially throw away 2.4 million or whatever it was dollars because the community doesn't want this? I just don't see them candidly going away if they did not do any kind of good faith effort or present why those 24 locations did not work. So again, appreciate the the opportunity and the thought to write to Carmen Rubio and others. I think it's that kind of pressure that's going to be imperative, because Carmen may not be in charge of that department come November. And so I can see a case where they just say, honestly, it's in our best interest if we just wait another 4 months. or
Mm.
5 months, and then we just push it forward.
Yes, I totally hear that, and that's a valid one, Jonah. The one thing they shared, their timeline, there is one sort of pressure, and that is the lease is going to be coming up at the Delta Park one. They wouldn't say when, but it seemed as if somewhere in the next 18 to 24 months. And so if they're going to have a space ready in time for leaving Delta Park, they need to get moving on it soon. So if they are playing the waiting game, they at the very least, they're preparing to then have no redemption center in North Portland for a period of time, because they need to start in the next few months. They need to be able to start the process if they're going to have it ready in time for when they are out of Delta Park. So yeah, they might be waiting, but then they're on a bit of a time crunch due to wanting to have something in place for when they have to leave the lease at Delta Park. And there's a question in the chat about, did Rep Nelson get involved? And yes, my apologies for not emphasizing this before, but the meeting was organized by Rep Nelson and his staff. So, and he led off the meeting by basically saying, like, this can't happen and won't happen, and I'll do whatever it takes to make it not happen. He's basically said there's never been another issue that's brought up this much constituent feedback and concern and input. And so he led off the meeting with quite a forceful statement around its prospects and his position on it. And even said that he would, if he needed to present something, bring something to the floor in Salem at the next session, he would do so. What that would be, I don't know, but he's willing to do it. So he was very much a strong advocate on the neighborhood's behalf in putting the meeting together and in what was shared in the meeting. So yeah, a big thank you to him and his team for organizing the meeting and their advocacy. And then again, to Carmen Rubio's team for doing being real estate brokers, finding all these other potential locations for them to evaluate and trying to, in good faith, get a viable and reasonable alternative. So we'll if there's any last questions, we'll do one more minute, but otherwise we'll move on here. Yeah. Right, yeah, so right now Safeway, they accept the bags, and then you said it's like 30, or it's like a very small number per day.
And New Seasons does it, Fred Meyer does it as well. Like, it just doesn't, to the general consumer, you don't notice it as much as maybe before BottleDrop, because they roll out cards. Like, I've seen it, you probably have actually seen it happen, but it's like 30 or so.
Yeah,
Whatever the daily amount is because of the radius to the actual redemption center.
and then if there's no redemption center, that number would go up to, I believe, 120.
Yeah.
So it'd be a 4 times increase that the retailers would have to accept per day per person. Any other hands? I don't see any hands raised, right?
Hey, I think Mike Barrett has a question.
Mike, are you there?
Yes, I'm a resident of Cathedral Park Neighborhood Association, and I sent out an email recently to a number of the commissioners, members of your neighborhood association, and it was about a recommendation for a location, and that was in the task. Proposed new task on Portland Road, which would locate it within the St. John's neighborhood, but it would also keep it in an area that is zoned industrial. I know Mike Vile did a review and put it in the Peninsula Review about the impact and everything that would occur with this location. It would it would not only keep it out of the Lombard location, which everybody is opposed to, and we really need to maybe come up with an alternative space for them, rather than just no, you can't put it there. No, you can't put. How about here? And I know that the Rubio's group is doing that, but this was just another suggestion of where to put it. You put it in the camps where the people use it. And there's a building there right now. I think it was for diesel repair or something. I don't know if they've removed it from the site, from the Portland task site, but it's a gigantic building, and it seems like it would lend itself to more of this industrial use that Mike Vile was pressing.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, and that came up that came up in the meeting. It was one of those sites the site that would serve more retailers, but it was zoned industrial. OBRC's, I guess it seems like strong preference might be the way I would frame it, is that these go into sites that are zoned commercial. And so that was part of the knock on the site that on Columbia Boulevard across from Mondelez that would serve more retailers. They said it was zoned industrial, and that was sort of a knock on it. They did try to say that the redemption centers have to be in something in zone commercial. They don't. So maybe there's some pressure to be put on there to have them move away from that, because they try to paint it as if it has to be in a commercially zoned area, but it does not. It could be an industrial zoned area. So, sorry, it's just a way to say, like, there's going to be natural pushback from them on anything zoned industrial. That doesn't mean it can't happen, but just means we'll have to push a little bit even harder if we do want to suggest it going into into a place that's zoned industrial.
Well, in the photos that Mike included in this review, there was heavy equipment moving around. It's not just a redemption center. That's the whole thing. This is where they're going to be crushing them, and it's going to be so noisy. And there's vehicles moving around inside the structure. I can't imagine somebody who lives adjacent to this location. It would just be noise all the time.
Yeah, totally.
So I don't see how they can consider that commercial or commercial retail. It's more industrial. The level of noise that's going to be coming out of that place is crazy.
Yeah, no, totally. I hear you there, Mike. And I think that argument has been made. Commercial employment zoning, which is the site on Lombard, says that you can't have waste-related activities there. And this feels pretty waste-related, but somehow it's been approved in the past as a fine use for that zoning. So we're dealing with we're dealing with stuff that we're able to make logical arguments that won't necessarily win the day, I guess, like all that stuff is reasonable and fair and makes sense, but we're still working to like break down a barrier here to get us on the same page. So do you have a question there, or?
I'm good. Thank you.
All righty. I do want to say one final thing on that. OBRC stands behind having an ultra high redemption rate and champions that and its environmental impacts that it's having. In my mind, they are using that to make themselves look good at the cost of having a workforce that they're not actually paying. So I do want us to keep that in mind, that this is a group of people that is being used to do a service and to not be paid a wage. And so maybe that should be some of this conversation here, is that OBRC should be paying the people that are doing the work for them and getting that high redemption rate that they champion, that they're actually achieving when it's really the people out there collecting and redeeming those cans. So just a food for thought. Maybe we want to have a different type of conversation around this as well. So we're going to move on. We're a little behind in the agenda, but that's fine. That was a good conversation. We have now a slot for Laura from the EPA to speak. Is Laura here? I hope that we haven't. There we go. Thank you.
Hi.
Hey there. Thanks
Hi,
for hanging
everyone.
around.
Oh, of course, a great discussion. Thanks for letting me be here. I'll go ahead and jump right in if that's okay, because I know I have about 10 minutes or so, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
And you
perfect.
should be able to share your screen if you want to go ahead and be able to manage your slides there.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you all so much for having me. My name is Laura Knudsen, and I know some of you, but it's great to meet all of you. And I'm a community involvement coordinator with the Environmental Protection Agency. And I work and have been working since 2016 on the Portland Harbor Superfund site, which I'm sure all of you are probably pretty familiar with. And if you're not, I'll put a couple links in the chat as I end. But essentially it is a toxic hazardous waste site that was listed in 2000. And it's about 10 miles from the Broadway Bridge to the middle of Sauvie Island. And the sediment in the bottom of the river is what we're working to clean up. And so what we've been working on for the last few years, so the final cleanup plan was issued in 2017. And so since then, our EPA team, in collaboration with the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, we've been working on designing, and many others too, we've been working on designing the actual active construction for the cleanup, which right now, the plan is like 2026 approximately is when that would start. And so, and we'll keep all of you very closely updated on that. But that is why I'm here tonight, is to give just a very short update. And I'm going to share it my screen, and then I'll have a few minutes for questions, and I'll stick around until the end in case there's any questions at the end anyone wants to bring up, or contact me offline too. I'll put all my information in the chat. There's something called, hopefully, can you all see my screen okay?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, great. Awesome. So I'm working with Josie Clark, just FYI. She's the technical remedial project manager for EPA, who's leading this work on the technical side. So there's something called the Portland Harbor Community Impacts Mitigation Plan. And right now we have a draft plan that I'm just going to briefly kind of breeze through these slides. And I have a recording of this full presentation that I'll put in the chat later. But essentially this Community Impacts Mitigation Plan is a plan, and it's a draft, again, plan right now. We're actually looking for feedback on it until August 6th. And I'll go through how, if any of you would like to do that, you can. And a community impacts mitigation plan, it describes the potential impacts to surrounding communities, which St. John's, of course, is one of those. So thank you again for having me. And some of you have already given feedback, I know, but this is a specific plan for when we do that active construction starting in 2026. So that's what the plan covers. In terms of timing. And right now that time frame is estimated to be 13 years total for the whole site, but for individual sections of the site, it'll be shorter because we are going to be doing the cleanup and sequencing. So anyway, what it is that this draft community impacts mitigation plan, it does outline requirements and recommendations that will be implemented during construction. And that essentially, that's all I'm going to kind of highlight on this slide. But I will, what the requirements, recommendations are in it are essentially like an agreement for when EPA knows which performing parties are going to be actually implementing the cleanup. This will apply to those performing parties, which we have not decided, that hasn't been decided yet. That's being negotiated soon in the future. and their contractors. So that's who it will apply to. And just wanted to let you know, this is the draft community impact mitigation plan has undergone a lot of input already, and from different groups. This is kind of small, sorry, but we've talked to DEQ. We have talked with the tribes, the 6 federally recognized tribes, NOAA. We have talked to different community groups. Portland Harbor Community Coalition has we've been talking to them a lot, and they've brought in other groups as well, like Ground Score, Blue Green Alliance. We do have a quarterly Portland Harbor collaborative group. You're all welcome to join too, or just observe. And then lots of other groups too. So over the last couple years, we've been working, on scoping this out with folks. But this time, like right now, we have a full draft, and we want to really share it broadly to get even more feedback. And our timing is that we'd collect feedback, by August 6th, and then we would work to then incorporate all that feedback into a revised draft by the end of this year. And just, part of why there is a community impact mitigation plan. This is a newer development for Superfund sites, but it is in line with environmental justice, promoting environmental justice and reducing impacts to overburdened, underserved communities, and gonna keep on going. So what actually is in the SIMP? So to be more concrete, and I'll put the link to the whole thing in the chat too. These are the kind of impacts that it talks about. So noise, from like machinery when the operation is going to be occurring, recreation, resident fish consumption, so like carp, and that's part of it. Unhoused, needed a D there, sorry. Riverfront access for unhoused community members, traffic and parking, light, air quality, job creation and losses in there, urban wildlife, navigation, safety, and water quality. All of those pieces are discussed in this community impacts mitigation plan. And this has a lot of words on it, so I'm just going to breeze through it. But essentially, there's 2 kind of pieces to each of these impacts that I just mentioned. So the SIMP is what we call it for short. Community Impacts Mitigation Plan goes through each of these impacts. And for each of these impacts, it shows what is a requirement, because there are some actual, like for water quality, for instance, and air quality, there are actual metrics that need to be followed by whomever is going to be implementing the cleanup. But then for other things, such as recreation, there are recommendations that the Community Impacts Mitigation Plan outlines, but they are not requirements. So, there could be like pressure, put on performing parties to implement them, but it's not the same as a requirement. So that's kind of how it's broken down. And there is also a communication section, which we've received a lot of feedback, and would love to see, if any of you do have time. I know your time is very valuable and you don't have a lot of time, I'm sure, to comment on things like this. But if you do have any thoughts on chapter 3 in particular, that's the communications and transparency section. So how are we going to be working, and how are the performing parties and their contractors going to be working to communicate what's going on during the active cleanup? And one way to do that the SIMP also talks about is having an implementation committee. So this would be, before each year, those 13 years of cleanup, we're only going to be doing cleanup for a few months because of the fish window. And so during, before that active construction starts, and then after, during and after, having a committee that would be comprised of EPA, DEQ, community members, performing parties, and others to come together and talk about communication and provide feedback on the SIMP requirements. We're planning to have a hotline, for instance, and that hotline could be reviewed during that implementation committee and could make updates and modifications as well. And other than that, there's we started the public feedback review on June 6th, but August 6th is when roughly we're looking, this is informal feedback. So if it's after August 6th and you still have some thoughts, just let me know. But we're looking to try to use this tool called Conveo to upload comments, and I can just show really fast what that looks like. So just so you know, this is what it looks like, and this is the actual document itself. So you essentially, I'll put this link in the chat, but you can just come in here and click and add a comment. Right on the document, other people will see your comments. So if you want to remain anonymous, you can put anonymous as a name. But that's how we're generally looking for feedback. But if you want a copy, a hard copy, let me know. Or if you want to give comments in another way, that's okay. Just let me know too. And that's about it. I would be happy to take any questions if there's time. And if there's not, I'll just put my email in the chat too. So thank you. I know that was fast. Sorry.
Thank you, Laura. I'm gonna try to put is that the correct? Oh no, it broke. I'm trying to.
It was pretty close.
I'm trying to share the link in the chat there. If anybody. There we go.
Perfect.
Hopefully that takes them to it. And there's a question in the chat. Can you see that?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, has the order of the site-specific claims already been determined? Specifically curious about Willamette Cove timeline. So that's a great question, Taylor, and it has not been, the sequencing has not been determined yet. We're talking about that right now, but it hasn't been finalized. So that's something we'll be keeping all of you updated on. In Willamette Cove, the Willamette Cove timeline, I will say, if you're interested in that specifically, and maybe you've been tracking that, just so you know, with the design of Willamette Cove. So we're not sure at what point Willamette Cove will be kind of sequenced within the whole cleanup when we do the active construction. But if you are interested in weighing in on that fact, or on the Willamette Cove design itself, they're actually later this fall in September-ish timing. We're expecting to get a design document from the Willamette Cove group that you could provide, and anyone could take a look at via the Willamette River Advocacy Group, which has a technical advisor who reviews those documents. And that's going to be a time when you could kind of look at what they're thinking about for the design of that specific area. So Taylor, if you're interested in that, just let me know, and I can connect you. And what time of the year would the work be near St. John's? That, I think it's, the fish window is, give me 1 second to look it up. I can I think it's, I think it's October. Let me check while here it is. So in water, it'll be July through October, and then December to January. That's when it is, the in-water operations, to avoid any impacts to the fish traveling along. It's a good question. So I know July, there's a lot of activities going on. So that would be something, if you get a chance to look at it, and you think of things that are occurring, in the area that might be important for us to know about as we're looking ahead, for the in-water construction, that would be very helpful too, if you get a chance.
Yeah, I could imagine Cathedral Park Jazz Festival is always middle of July, and so
great. Yeah.
I don't see any questions in the room before we go to one more on Zoom. Yeah. Cool.
You were ambiguous about who is going to be picked to implement this. I mean, is that being discussed among agencies? Are city and county involved in any of those discussions, or is it really just EPA? I know the contractors fall out from whoever is implementing, but who's making the decision about who's in charge?
Who's making the decision about who's in charge of implementation of the cleanup?
So who's making decisions about the implementation of the cleanup is the question?
Yes.
Right? That's a great question. So EPA is in charge of, overseeing the whole cleanup, and the actual implementation though will be done by, we call them potentially responsible parties who have been identified as being potentially responsible for the contamination. And that's what we're not sure about right now for the active construction of the cleanup. Right now, we have agreements with about 34 or so potentially responsible parties for the design of the cleanup, where we're working to design, going into the active construction. But that active construction piece, we don't have any agreements in place yet. And so we don't know is the answer to the question for the active construction. We hope to know, I think in the next year or so is roughly, when we would hope to know that, but we're not sure because those agreements have to be negotiated, and we have to have parties that are interested in signing an agreement for the active construction with us that we would be overseeing. Does that make sense?
So would you want any support from the neighborhood association for I don't know who's coming to you in good faith and who isn't. So for leaders who have been reluctant to honor this Superfund dedication, designation, and the rest can go forward, is there anything the neighborhood association could do that would be useful for you and that can move faster?
So anything the neighborhood association, the members can do to try to move along these potentially responsible parties that are in terms of, especially those that might be resistant or slower than, is there any sort of advocacy that would be helpful from us on that front? Or
that's a really good question. I'll bring that question back to my team. I would say that these Portland Harbor collaborative meetings that we have every quarter are usually pretty well attended by representatives of some of the potentially responsible parties. And so if, and there's, usually an opportunity for questions and answers at those. And so I'll, I think that some of you are on the agenda, but I'll make sure. I think that the general St. John's Neighborhood Association email is, so it might be good to kind of track those. That's just a good forum that occurs every quarter. Our next one is September 11th in person and online. So that's just a thought, because those are recorded, and you could go there too as a way to kind of state that. But I'll also ask our team and just see if there's any thoughts that they have.
So that meeting, the Portland Harbor collaborative meeting, is open to the public and to attend.
Yes.
And great. Okay. So if you could send anything along to the email address, and we could share the next one to make sure people are aware.
Sounds great.
Thank you, Laura. We're gonna, or I guess there was one more question in the chat, and then we'll move on.
Oh, yeah, Patrick. Yeah.
While the cleanup is being done.
Yeah, that's a great question, Patrick. And we aren't anticipating that there will be any water quality concerns, but we are going to be doing that is part of what is in this community impact mitigation plan, is kind of outlining how that monitoring will be done during the active construction for water quality. And so we're going to be, there's going to be tight communication between us and the performing parties and their contractor for that water quality monitoring, so that anything can be flagged quickly if there is any concern, and communicated quickly, which is also part of the plan. So not anticipating it, because we have some pretty good best practices and standards for making sure the water quality is good and maintained during the cleanup, but have a plan within the community impacts mitigation plan draft for handling it if anything does occur.
Great. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you all so much.
You have a great evening.
Thank you.
All righty. Thanks for bearing with us, folks. We're going to move on now to community organization updates. We'll roll through the first couple here, and then any others that are in attendance are welcome to speak. So the first one we have the St. John's Boosters. So Rebecca, if you're still hiding here in my screen, then you can
I
go
should
ahead. There
be.
you are. There you are.
Hello, good evening, everyone. The main thing for the summers are just our game nights in the plaza. Those are on Thursdays, 6:30 to 8:30. The goal is to try and get community members using the plaza. The more people that we have using the plaza, the sort of easier it is to maintain the plaza. There's just been so much trash and encampments happening in the plaza this summer, and we're trying to stay on top of it all, reporting it. Everybody can report it. But it helps to have community in the plaza using it because it allows a sense of vibrancy and, oh, some people are here doing things, I'm going to booger off for a bit or whatever. So we do recommend that you come for the game night because it's fun. And if you have an event that you want to do in the plaza or something that you want to, an idea that you want to have to see about activating the plaza, get in touch with us. I'll put my email in the chat because we're always looking for different ways to do that. We also have our plaza cleanups once a month. I think Tanya, our district manager, has gotten a confirmation from PBOT to help maintain it as well. They recently replanted the Pocket Park that's by like Ivanhoe and Philadelphia, like right at the corner there by Burgerville. And so they're also going to be helping water those plants and kind of keeping an eye on things too. But all hands are helpful. And I think that's mostly it for the boosters. We're always in need of volunteers. So if you're interested as well, reach out and, you know, we can get you involved. I know everybody's in need of volunteers. It's a real big thing right now. So we're not the only ones asking for volunteers, but we do a lot of events for the community. So, you know, it does take a lot of hands to do that. I think that's it though. So that is my presentation. Keeping it short.
Thank you. Any questions for Rebecca? Anybody? No. All right. Thank you again. Moving on. If there's anybody from St. John Center for Opportunity, we have a spot here. Yes.
Oh,
Hey there. Do you want to come up so you can give the update to those on Zoom as well, or? That's
oh,
fine.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Welcome in. Thanks for coming out.
So, hello everyone. My name's Nikki. I'm the Programs and Outreach Coordinator for SJCO.
Oh.
And I just wanted to let everyone know that we actually moved. I don't know if folks know, but we moved and we're right across from the St. John's Farmers Market now. So we have an office right across from there and we're a little more accessible on Saturdays in that way. And other than that, that's it. I'm just here to introduce myself and say hello. And if you have questions, you can always reach me on the website. Yeah.
Great. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
And Tom, is this a question?
No.
Oh, okay. Any
yeah,
question? That's it. Thanks for being
Thank
here.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All righty. I always keep a spot for our friend Donna Cohen on the emergency route, but she emailed me saying she didn't think she was gonna be able to make it this evening. But you may have seen the newsletter that, you know, the point still stands. The advocacy continues there on that front. And so feel free to reach out and we can put you in touch with Donna on that front. Again, the generic email inbox for SJNA is info@stjohnspdx.org. Put that in the chat. Now, Tom, you had your hand raised. You go ahead. We'll go to you next there.
Just wanted to make real quick, the St. John's Food Bank, food share is always encouraged, needs cash donations. But mainly the important thing is University Park in Portsmouth are having garage sales this Sunday, and I provided the link in the chat.
Great. Thanks, Tom. And for those in the room, that's on the UPNA website. It's upnapdx.org. I'm sure if you Google University Park Neighborhood Association, it'll come up and they'll have the information about the garage sales there. Anybody in the room, part of a community organization that wants to provide a quick update? We good. We'll go Bernadine, we'll go over to Friends of Pier Park there, and then we'll come to Paul. Go ahead, Bernadine.
Okay, Roosevelt High School Alumni Association all-class reunion picnic is July 20th, Columbia Park, 12 to 4.
Nice. Would you mind coming up here to be able to provide it for those on Zoom? July 20th, Bernadine? July 20th for the reunion?
July 20th.
Great. Columbia Park. Righty.
Right.
So,
Hi, everyone. I'm Keola Morley. I'm with many organizations, but I am here particularly for Friends of Pier Park. As you folks have realized, if you walk through Pier, that our pool is closed. There was a leak. Was it last Thursday evening to Friday morning? We lost 50 gallons of water. I haven't heard if they found where that water went yet. And on Monday, they were out searching for it. So to say the least, it's not looking hopeful that our pool is going to open this summer. Because they have to go do major surgery. The leak is under the deck. So we believe we found the pipe that's leaking, but to get it fixed is what the next issue is. So with that, we've gotten a lot of emails, and I've gotten messages from Barbara Quinn, just really supporting us, because we all know what happened to Columbia, and we don't want that to happen to Pier. About 20 years ago, myself and other members came to save the pool because we were on the chopping block 20 years ago. And so here we are again. I'm not sure. I'm not saying we're on the chopping block, but we just want to be sure that we're not. And so we're asking the neighborhood to call. Either, who is it? Is it Michael Jordan? There's a different commissioner in charge of a deputy administrator, and this person's name is Shauna, and they run the vibrant, I don't remember, event of the city. So we'll be working with top officials to really get the details of what's going on and let them know that we are here, we are watching, and that the community is ready to come together if we get news that our pool will not be open, especially next year and the years coming. And so that's the first part. I also have a second thing I just want to mention. So this last Saturday, we had Human Access Project, the rededication of the dock. It was great to see so many people. While I was there's the information booth. So Metro was handing out personal flotation devices or life jackets. And that got me thinking, it's now dedicated, people know about it. There's a great dock. It is the river. And so I had spoken with a person by the name of Justin, who works for the State of Marine Department. And he mentioned another group that I should contact. They're called the Nautical Safety Foundation. And they provide education, river safety, but they also provide funding for what is called a life jacket, kind of a swap station. And I'm sorry, I forgot my notebook, or else I would have had the proper term. So that we can, there's notification on a basically on a board with pegs and life jackets. So there's information and then life jackets to give to the people using the river. So it's education, really. And I feel like with the push now for Cathedral Park, the new dock, this is a good opportunity to teach about the river and its hazards and to be safe and start educating our public about safety on the riverfront. So thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
So no questions in the chat there. Paul, come on down.
Hey, hi. Quickly, I'm wearing my net hat tonight. So the Neighborhood Emergency Team, which covers both Cathedral Park and St. John's, is launching a new program that could be interesting to everyone here. It's called Affiliated Team Volunteers. Affiliated team volunteers are like nets, except they don't have to come to meetings, but they can. They don't have to go to trainings, but they can. What they have to do is say what they're good at, and then you become affiliated with the team in a way that works for you. I just dropped a link in the chat. It's worth looking at because it's a little place where you can sign up, but it gives you a lot of information before you sign up. And if you sign up, all it means is we're going to call you and see if you want to do it. So look at the
And
chat.
there's items there for those in the room,
For
right?
those in the rooms, there's some handouts that have the same link.
Link doesn't work. So
Lisa's
The
having
link
trouble
doesn't
with the
work.
link.
You know what? Is that because it has a period at the end?
maybe.
It does have a period at
Take
the
the,
end.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
take the period off the end.
I think you can edit your message and hit that off there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions there? No, great. So, any other community organizations hiding in plain sight want to give an update? Block parties. Yeah. Jesse, sorry.
Yeah.
Get out of here. The Safer Together program.
Hello, I'll make this brief. I know we're probably over time, but just wanted to reiterate that we have a block party program. Many of you already know about it, but basically we have a bunch of equipment available to St. John's and Cathedral Park, including speakers, tables, a couple of tents and a bouncy house, so also a movie screen. So lots of things to create a really interesting block party. And we also just wanted to reiterate that, as Paul mentioned, he's on the nets. The nets can come to your block party and give a quick spiel about disaster resiliency. So things you might not be aware of related to earthquakes or fires or any of that kind of thing. It's just an interesting opportunity to kind of meet your neighbors and also talk about disaster resiliency. But really your block party can be whatever you want it to be. So check out the link on the website if you're interested. We have a lot of weekends still open coming up in August and September, even October. It's probably still going to be nice, maybe even better than doing it right now. So yeah, just wanted to again share that this program is available to you and we're here to help. Jessica Fletcher, me and Paul are working on the team to help this program get kicked off again. So that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Thank you. And I had my block party last October and it was great. So can confirm October is a good time to have these. All right. I see Paul's hand raised, but that's a legacy
That's
hand,
what-
right?
that's-
Yeah, okay. Mary,
Yeah, hi, everybody. Just wanted to share, I know it's a little bit of a distance from St. John's, but the Overlook Neighborhood Association is hosting Porch Fest this weekend. It's both days. I think it's roughly 11 to 8. And I guess they have gotten 70 bands who will be performing. So they got some, yeah, grant funding, and they're performing on people's porches or maybe front yards, and I think it's also happening in businesses. I don't have the link handy here, but I'm sure you can find it on their website. So just that might be something fun that you might all enjoy.
thank you, Mary. Man,
Sure.
what was the cost of an insurance rider for 70 band event? Come on.
Well, yeah, actually, suggestion was get a rider.
Yeah.
Homeowners insurance should be covering that. Yeah.
Thanks, Mary.
Sure.
All right. Anything from anybody? General, doesn't have to be a community group. Any community members on Zoom, in person, who want to ask a question, comment, concern, motion? Caroline.
Hi. I appreciate you, RJ. Thank you. I think you're doing a wonderful job, and this was very informative update about OBRC. I'm just incensed that they were offered 24 sites and that none of them could be improved with the 30 million plus per year that they take in from our money and that they keep. But I'm asking now about the library. You did a little call, and me and 2 other people signed up, and tomorrow morning I'll get on my real computer and email back. But I just wanted to say, evidently the library will not do a pop-up, and they will close either in late summer or early fall. And I really, really want this group to stay on the case of the library about their very expensive bookmobile. It is my understanding, according to Willamette Week, they spent $350,000, I think, on a bookmobile that's been out of order for months. And I feel like having a visit once or twice a week from a bookmobile is just exactly the thing we need. So I hope others will join me, and I want to work with these 3 people and invite others to, maybe we can figure out more about who to comment and what to say.
Totally. And thank you. Well, yes, if you don't mind coming up here and sharing. Brooklyn has a little bit on the bookmobile. What's interesting, briefly to share before he comes up, Annie specifically mentioned it at the last meeting that she was at as a potential resource to use. But then there's the reporting of that it doesn't work, and then there's also
so the bookmobile broke. Turns out books weigh a lot, and they put too many books in it and broke it a couple years back. They still own it, but they're not going to repair it, and I don't think they're going to change their mind on that. They're also, from my conversations with them and just their general attitude, they seem to be of the opinion that since St. John's isn't utilizing the library enough, they're not trying hard enough. So we got to use the library more for them to care more. Is kind of the general attitude I'm getting.
But Caroline, to your point, whatever with the bookmobile, that aside, we can still have that ask of a consistent pop-up where it is a known time, a known place, weekly, every other week, so things like that, to have a consistent resource at least. That was something that was briefly mentioned at the last meeting that she was at, and I think there's room there to push on that.
And they have done it for other neighborhoods, but they were like, oh, those neighborhoods use their library more than you guys do.
That was, basically they're setting up a place for Holt's pickup for when they close the Belmont library, because it is such high volume there that they need to set that up, that they say, or else the system would break down. So but yeah, I think there is room to advocate for that, to where like they're when they talk about a temporary library, they're saying like we can't have a library open Monday through Friday with consistent hours, blah, blah, blah. But I do think, yeah, there's room to get a consistent space on a just less frequent basis, but still something that's there to service the community. So that can be something that we push on there.
On a much lesser note, I was curious if in regard only to returns, can we still return using the book drop? That would at least take off some of the pressure a little bit, but so I'm just curious if they would consider entertaining that request, but it doesn't really solve the problem of picking up books.
Yeah.
We'll just get some back sooner.
She did say that the default holds pickup would be Kenton, but we could, again, yeah, we could push for a space to once a week, there's a holds pickup on a Saturday at a place and do some things like that. So there's different areas to for sure.
Thank you.
So we'll continue to coordinate on that front. Brennan, did you have a question or a comment there on that?
Yeah, sorry. No, I just coming in on the final hour for the community group update, if I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the Big Yard Foundation is a nonprofit that I started in 2018, and we're going into our second week of our Big Yard Academy, which is working with 32 middle school students at the University of Portland. And so that it's a full day of STEAM education curriculum coupled with flag football training. And the Big Yard Foundation focuses on our underserved communities, especially historically marginalized communities, through education, creativity, and physical wellness. So Big Yard Academy is our biggest community service initiative yet. And we have, like I said, 32 middle school students, both boys and girls, who've been coming out for the last week. And this is our second week of the programming. So just wanted to share that for anyone who maybe for next summer knows any middle school students or parents that might be interested in their kid having some fun summer programming, and then also any maybe any local businesses who would be open to supporting what we're trying to do here in North Portland and Northeast Portland. So I'll drop the website in the chat for you all to learn more.
Thank you, Brennan. We've got, I got a bird in my ear here from Paul Rippey that there's a couple of first-time joiners to the meeting. Yeah. So we have Bonnie McLean and Emily Albertson who are here for their first time. So we just wanted to give a quick shout out and welcome and a hello. So thanks for being here, and thanks for all those who come back time after time. We appreciate you. We are running out of time here. We have board updates. If we have them, we'll run through them quickly, and then we'll get out of here. So Patrick, do you have any updates that you would like to share?
Just a brief task update since last we spoke. I heard back from Hank Smith, who's working for the office of Mayor Ted Wheeler, just on some updates happening at the site down the road on North Portland Road. So it looks like the construction has begun, as I'm sure many have seen driving by. The tank and septic system is mostly installed. Work is beginning on electrical lines and outlets. Paving is scheduled to start at the end of June. I'm not sure if I've seen it actually paved. I haven't been in the last week. But they're currently targeting onboarding the first individual sometime in September, is the current update. But again, with construction, it's always late and over budget, so who knows. And then the only last update was that the occupancy numbers have been adjusted. And so I think originally everyone was aware that it was around 150 RVs, I think is what they communicated. They're now looking at 90 pods and 70 parking spaces, just based on some of the learnings they've had, not only from Sunderland, but also the Clinton Triangle. Yes,
the other
Clinton Triangle, other task site. So looking at a fairly large pod setup and parking spaces, so about half and half or so. So those are the the main updates I have.
Any questions there for Patrick regarding the task site? No, nothing there. Okay.
Well, I had a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Patrick, did they happen to mention if and when the county is going to take over running that task site?
No, I hadn't heard anything on that, or any specifics. But I mean, from my understanding, Urban Alchemy is going to be the folks that are going to be running that. Are you referring to
Oh,
something
yeah,
else, or-
yeah, operating, yeah, but I think that it's gonna move from the city to the county in terms of, oversight.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
I
don't know
that.
when. Yeah, that's what I heard anyway.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put the link in the chat, which was last updated, I believe, in May. But this is where they keep directing me as a site that they will continue to update with pertinent information when it is posted. Cool.
Any other questions on the task run? All right.
Oh, Janelle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So isn't there a time limit that property is available for the TAS? My understanding was a three-year proposition. We're already way past the year. So have they mentioned that at all?
I do remember a mention of 3 years, not as I wasn't under the impression it was a hard limit, though. It was the goal is that this lasts for 3 years and then gets handed over for who owned it before, whatever department owns it would be able to then use it for their purposes after that.
My initial understanding was that it was going to be repurposed for something else, which was my concern over that site all along. Why would you put up a TAS if you're going to bring it and you're going to have to bring it down and then use the site for something else? But yeah, initially it was 3 years and we're well past a year at this point. So just curious.
Yeah. So we got first contact, I believe, last October. So yeah, it'll be a year this fall.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally hear your point.
Yeah. We will just have to see. I could easily see it going more than 3. All right. Bernadine, you want to do the numbers? Sorry. I should have chosen. Shout out to Jesse for musical transition.
So much.
Which one do you want to go through first here?
We're gonna do the treasurer's report
Deal.
first,
All right.
okay?
All right.
This is the treasurer's report for our general checking account, June 9th to July 7th. Our beginning balance was $7,138.17. For income, we had from the city of Portland, this was a communications reimbursement grant. We received $708.61. So our total income is $708.61. We've had expenses for Zoom, $15.99. For the city of Portland, $192.50, which is for renting this room for one night for tonight. And MailChimp is $38.25. That is our email service. Total expenses, $246.74. A balance of $7,600.04. We have restricted of that balance $3,085.60, which is the Metro grant, which covers expenses that we have for doing the dumpster days, the cleanups and stuff. That was the grant that Metro gave us. So we have unrestricted $4,514.44 on the general.
I got a question before I forget. Are we planning on meeting this room again next month as well? Or is it just gonna be our summer meeting location?
So, and for those on Zoom, the question was about if we would meet at the community center again next month, because we normally meet in the schools. The schools allow us to meet there for free, but they don't allow us to meet there July and August. That's an open question. This was more expensive than we thought it would be, and our line item budget for facility rental, we would actually be going over our line item budget for facility rental if we got this same space again for next month. So that's an open question, I think, of if we will be here again, or if we would find an alternative space, or do 1 month of just on Zoom before returning to in person. I think it's an ongoing conversation.
Okay, the next account we have is the art fund. And our same date range, June 9th, July 7th. Beginning balance is $100.04. We have no income, no expenses. Our balance is $100.04. And then any questions on that? Okay, then BottleDrop. Our same date range. Beginning balance was $496.50. We had bags dropped. $52.50 came in. So we have a balance of $549 in BottleDrop. Any questions?
Nothing on Zoom that I'm seeing.
Okay. And just so that you know, there are copies of the treasurer's report. The end of the fiscal year, since we just ended our fiscal year, June 30th, is over there. And also copies of the approved budget that the general membership approved last month are over there on the table if you would like.
And the fiscal year report?
Huh?
Do you want to go through the other two now, or do you think those are just fine for submitting for the record?
I'll read through the end of the fiscal year. Everybody should have known because nothing changed from the approved budget.
Great.
So that everyone besides here having access to a printout of the end of the fiscal year, those possibly on Zoom can't see it.
I have it.
Yeah, but not everybody can see it if they're calling in
Oh,
from
right,
a
right.
phone at times and they're just listening to it. So the end of the fiscal year report for 23-24 goes from July 1st of 2023 through June 30th of 2024. Our beginning balance was $12,828.53. We had income from BottleDrop of $450. That's what we had budgeted. That's what we did. We had donations of $2,683.57. Majority of that came from another 501c3 that dissolved and went through the legal process, and we were one of the recipients of them dissolving. And then fundraisers, which was selling the hats at St. John's Bazaar on the day of the St. John's Parade, $690. Total expenses, $3,823.57. For expenses, bank fees, we had none for the year. Copying and printing, $203.20. Day of the Child grant, $65.65. That was a restricted grant and it's now closed. That was the final payment. Facility rentals, $0. Hospitality, $0. Insurance, $20. Office supplies, $41.99. Oregon state fees, $70. Postage, none. Publicity, $215.54. Safer Together grant, $7,708.93. That was a restricted account grant that we had gotten, and it is now closed. It was for 1 year. And stuff. That is what helped facilitate doing block parties, putting out all the information in both English and Spanish and stuff, and taking care of everything. And that was a grant that we had gotten. St. John's Bazaar, $250. St. John's Parade, $250. And web services was $704.61 for total expenses of $9,529.92. And our ending balance as of the night of June 30th, $7,122.18. Restricted is the $3,085.60 from the Metro grant. Leaves us unrestricted $4,036.58. Any questions on the general account? Then onto the art fund, same date range.
Oh, is there?
Good question. So this right now is not that.
There's 3 printouts. This, we're on the fiscal year end report.
Okay. The art fund, same date range, beginning balance $100.04. No income, no expenses, $100.04. BottleDrop, same date range. We had a beginning balance of $560.74. Bags dropped $431.70. We had donations, 90 cents. And holiday giveaway. BottleDrop does a thing around Thanksgiving to Christmas where there's a date range, and those nonprofits that are registered with them can sign up to do, and depending on how much is deposited, then they give you 20% additional. So we got $9.70 for a total income of $442.30. We had expenses. We bought 10 rolls of bags for $20. We had a processing fee of 34 cents. And that comes from somebody depositing a blue bag through a non-traditional way, and they processed that BottleDrop did, but then they charged us the 34 cents for processing the bag because it didn't get dropped properly. And then we transferred to the general checking account $450. And so I'll just also say the processing fee, since that happened way last fall and stuff, their system has now changed. So they're no longer charging the nonprofits a processing fee when things go wrong. Anyway, our ending balance, $532.70. Any questions?
Nothing on Zoom.
Okay.
Thanks, Bernadine.
Yep.
All right. We're well over, so I'm going to say, are there any urgent updates from any other board members? Otherwise, we will close this one out. Anything?
Just quick, we were talking about having an outreach committee, so if anyone is interested in being part of that, join our next board meeting and we can talk about it more.
Anybody on Zoom there? It was a shout out for the outreach committee. If you have any interest in getting involved on that front, shoot an email to info@stjohnspdx.org. We can give information about coming to a future board meeting, chatting about that. All right. With that, no? All right. With that, we'll close out the meeting at 8:49 p.m. Thanks for your patience, everybody, and thanks for being here, and we'll see you next month. Have a lovely, stay cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.